Good morning. Actually, the topic of counseling is, in my opinion, more important than many people realize. I would say counseling has been around for a long time in America, but really in the last 10 to 15 years, it has really opened people's eyes on the benefits that counseling provides. And so I have three topics that I'm going to be discussing. One of those, the first one, is on asking open-ended questions in counseling. And anyway, since you're up here, why don't you come up to the front here? Come up here. Are you enjoying the lectureship?
Yes, sir.
What about the lectureship is the most special to you this year?
The principles of counseling.
Oh, principles of counseling. Let me ask you a question about this wall.
Wow.
Do you like this wall?
It's a great one. Inspiring messages.
Yeah. Inspiring messages. That's right. So, do you see the differences in the questions that I'm asking? I asked a question. Are you enjoying the lectureship? And he said, yes. That's it. But then I asked a question. I don't know what I asked. What is the most special part of the lectureship this year? And you were talking about the principles. And you started discussing some things, right? Thank you, Timothy. So many times, we in our discussions will ask questions that are closed. And what I mean by that is there are questions with a yes or a no answer. Are you enjoying the lectureship? Yes. But if you ask the same question in a different way, you get a lot more conversation. And as a counselor, you need the client, as Samuel was saying, the client. In my literature, I call him the counselee. You need the counselee to talk, to open up, to be able to discuss things. And if you ask a closed question with a yes or a no answer, there's no discussion. So you've got to think of ways to ask your questions differently to get different answers. I want to go back to Samuel's lesson on page 22 in your manual. On page 22, number 6, it says, God is testing you. And then he says the alternative approach is to reframe suffering. I underlined that word reframe because in Christian counseling, that is a method that counselors use to be able to help discussions. And when we're thinking about communication, questions, counselings, sometimes you have to reframe the situation, reframe the question, reframe the attitude. Now, what does that mean? That camera right there, that camera is focused on me, right? Because it's recording me. Sometimes they take the camera and they put it to the audience. Do you know what they're doing? They're reframing the video to have a different viewpoint, right? Now, a counselor sometimes must reframe conversations, discussions, topics, reframe them in a way so that the counselee will see it in a different way. But the only way to reframe things is to have communication. Communication is key to a successful marriage. Communication is key to a successful school operation. Communication is key. Communication is one of the reasons why I come to Nigeria 2 or 3 times a year. Because, email and WhatsApp are great tools, but they only go so far. Real communication depends upon sitting with that person, discussing in person, seeing the body language of different individuals. Communication is key in my mission work. It's key in our marriages. And it's key in our counseling sessions. When you sit down to talk with a counselee, so many times they're going to be very quiet at first. Me? I am a very open person. I do not mind anyone knowing what I'm thinking, what's going on, but when it comes to my personal problems, I am very closed. I don't share a lot of my personal problems with many people. And so if I were to sit in a counseling session, I would have a lot of difficulty with that. The counselor would have a lot of difficulty with me, getting me to open up. And one of the ways to do that is through open-ended questions. Asking questions to get the conversation started, get words coming out of my mouth. When you ask yes or no questions, you'll get the answer, but maybe not a full discussion. For example, you may ask, did you lose that job? Well, that is a yes or no question. That yes or no response will not help you dig down and resolve the person's issue of why they lost that job. So you can ask an open-ended question like, why do you think you lost that job? And start letting the person discuss those reasons. An open-ended question requires a person to open up and discuss more, which will help them get the conversation rolling. Open-ended questions typically start with one of 5 open-ended words. Who, what, when, where, and why. And here are some examples of some open-ended questions. Things like, number 1, what are your plans for the future? Well, we all have things we want to do, but an open-ended question like that will get someone to open up and start thinking, oh, that's all right. Start thinking about some of the plans they may have. What are your plans for the future? What do you want to accomplish this year? That allows a person to start thinking and discussing some of those plans. Number 2, what challenges have you overcome? What skill do you want to learn? I mean, you can ask, I would like to learn the skill of playing the guitar. Me personally, I would like to learn that. Playing the guitar sounds interesting. Ding, 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 ding. Playing a song. That's interesting. I had an uncle. He could just pick up a guitar and play it's like he was born to play the guitar. And when I was a small child, he bought me a small guitar because he wanted me to follow the same way. But I just never did that. But I find it very interesting. So if you ask me, Would you like to learn a skill? Yes. What skill do you want to learn? Well, you have to reframe the question by saying something like this one. What skill would you like to learn? Well, I would like to learn about the guitar and learn how to play the guitar. What do you consider a success? What is successful to you? Number 3, what do you enjoy doing in your free time? What is your favorite place to visit? What is your favorite book? Number 4, what motivates you? What do you find joy in? What do you think sets you apart from others? These are all questions to get the person to think and to discuss. Number 5, what do you think is important in a job or in a company? I think something important in a job or a company is this or that. Especially if you're talking to someone who cannot find a job or has lost a job or is struggling at their workplace. That's a good question to ask. What do you think is important in a job or in a company? What do you think makes a person valuable to a team? Oh, man. It gets the person thinking about some of those things. How do you deal with stress? Now, that's a simple question. Do you have stress? Yes. Do I have stress? Most definitely. Right? Most definitely do I have stress. Especially around sometimes when some of my beloved African brethren are looking for money, right? Oh, they are on my neck pretty hard. They put stress on me. We're all under stress about a lot of things. Most of the time, stress revolves around money. Oh, so many times. We all have stress. But how do we handle that stress? How do you handle stress? Some people avoid stress. They just run away. Something stressful is happening, they just run away. Some people get angry. They overreact when they're having a situation. They're under stress and they become agitated. That doesn't help. Some people, when they're under stress, they run to alcohol or drugs or smoking. That is a coping mechanism. How do you handle stress? Some people run to other women to find comfort there, to avoid the stress. How do you deal with stress? That is something you can discuss with your counselor. How do they deal with that? How do you motivate others? How do you like to celebrate special occasions? Number 7, what was it like growing up? So oftentimes, we cannot escape our childhood. How we were raised, the principles that we were taught as a child, the things that we saw as a child. We cannot escape that. How do you treat your spouse today is based upon how you saw your mother and father interact. How you treat your children is a reaction to how you were treated as a child. Maybe your parents were very strict about going and doing this. And your response to that is to just allow the child, just don't even put a rule there, because you are still upset because of how strict your parents were on that side. And so with your own children, you don't even have a rule. But then also, as with my own children, I have 6 children and 6 grandchildren, so I know about children. With my own children, I have found the words coming out of my mouth sound very similar to the words of my father and mother. We cannot escape our childhood. And sometimes we mistreat children or allow children to be mistreated, thinking, don't forget about it. The children are resilient, and children are resilient. Don't get me wrong. But I spent some time in an orphan's home dealing with orphans, and I will tell you truly, parents can treat their children terribly. It makes no sense to me at all why some parents treat their children in the way that they do. Now, I'm going to be very clear. There are no perfect parents, right? There are no perfect parents. And I myself, I have 6 children. I have struggled for years with guilt. What did I do wrong? What did I say wrong? What did I not do right? What should I have done different? That guilt will haunt me for a long time. But at a certain point, I had to realize I am not a perfect parent. There is no perfect parent. And I have done my little best that God has allowed me to do. And that child, or now that adult, can make their own choices. But we cannot escape our childhood. And so when you ask that question, when you're dealing with someone, what was it like growing up? Listen to what they're saying. Hear the points that they're bringing out. Because their childhood, they'll never escape it. And they're trying to still today deal with what happened 30 years ago. What was it like growing up? What do you remember about a time that you were proud of? Now that question, I want you to keep in your mind for my discussion later on today about competency-based counseling. Number 8. Maybe that person lost a job, or maybe the wife is having trouble at the house, whatever the case may be. Ask her, why do you think that approach is the best? For, people have, a script. A script. If you're an actor in a TV show or in a movie, you have lines that you have to say, right? Everyone has a script in their mind. When dealing with your wife or your children, you have a script. You fall back on the memorized patterns that you know. The patterns of your childhood, the patterns of how you've dealt with other problems in the past, what has worked, what has not worked, and all those things are recorded in a script in your mind. And everyone is reading off of that script. And so what you, the counselor, have to do is you've got to get that person to open up that script for you. And help that person to realize they're reading off a script. And that they do not have to respond in the same way they've always responded. For example, if a woman is upset, she's always angry because the husband comes home drunk every night and there's always a fight. What is that? That's a script. That's an anticipated event. As a counselor, you have to help the counselee to realize that you don't always have to respond in the same way. It didn't work last night. It didn't work the night before. It didn't work 3 nights ago. What makes you think you responding the same way is going to work tonight? You got to help them realize that. Now, a family member, I was doing some premarital counseling with a family member. I was going to do their wedding. His mother and father are both divorced. The mother has been divorced multiple times, right? Now, he became a Christian in his early 20s. And he is very serious about Christianity. And he really wants to do what's right. But in my premarital counseling, what did I do? I went back to his parents. Because he is going to treat his wife in the same way that his own parents interacted. Right? Because that's what they know. That's what they've been taught. And if divorce is acceptable for those people, without even realizing it, that person with him and his new marriage, now somewhere in the mind, thinks divorce is okay because it worked out for them. That's not what the Bible teaches, right? And so I had to talk about Scripture, about it as one man and one woman for the rest of your life, and the divorce is not an option, right? It's not an option. But then I went through all of that, but then I spent even more time with them, with that person, talking about realizing the situation. You have to acknowledge, have helped that counseling acknowledge that mother and father are divorced and it's not acceptable. You have to acknowledge that. And you have to acknowledge his, listen, you have to help them to acknowledge the tendencies in their own lives. You see, with a lot of people, there's a cycle. There's a cycle. They learn what to do by watching others, and then they do it in their own lives. So if that person who's going to get married, and I'm doing premarital counseling, he learned from experience that divorce is an option. And if we did not do a lot of discussion in premarital counseling before he gets married, that as a Christian, divorce is not an option. Right? Now, I know Jesus says for marital unfaithfulness. We're not discussing that. So many times, because the woman doesn't clean the house, let's divorce, right? Or the man is this, or the woman is that, let's just divorce. It's an option. No, it's not. Not in Christians. Not in the biblical sense of marriage. When you get married, you are committed to that person for the rest of your life. Now, for me, I have had to deal with that. I've married someone that she's a member of the church, but you know what? After we got married and we started, living together and things are going on, when you first get married, you have what's called the honeymoon period. When that person cannot do anything wrong. You're just in love and you're so happy to be married. That person is just wonderful. Then comes the realization, who did I marry? And why did I marry that person? Right? Oh man, you know what happened? And so I went through the same thing, honeymoon period. Oh, I love my wife. And then I went to the period, whoa, what did I get into? And why did I marry that one? And look at the things she's doing wrong. But at a certain time, I come to accept her as she is. Right? I'm committed to her. She's committed to me. And for all of my good things and bad things in my life, she's accepted me. And all the good things and bad things in her life, I've accepted her. Are there some things that I wish she would change? Sure. But I'm sure there's just as many things she would like for me to change in my life as well. We have come to accept each other. We've made that biblical commitment to marriage. Right? So anyway, when I'm in that premarital counseling session with that guy, and I was trying to help him acknowledge the tendencies for divorce, he has to realize those things so that he, going into this marriage, will realize that marriage is for life. All right. And so we're on number 8. Why do you think that approach is best? You know, marriage is a very sticky situation. In America, I don't know how it is here, but in America, the most dangerous situation a policeman can be in. Do you know what the most dangerous situation a policeman can be in America? Called to the home during a marital dispute. That is statistically the most dangerous time for a police officer. I tell you what. You know, me and my family lived in Tanzania for 5 years, and there was a lady there. She was a single mother with 2 children, trying to raise those children on her own. Before I moved there, she had already divorced her husband because he would come home drunk every night and would just beat and just beat and just beat. And finally, at a certain point, she realized she had to show better for her 2 children, and so she decided to leave that situation. And so she was trying her best to raise those 2 children. I had known her for many years, but I was discussing with her, and she started crying. She said, "Brother Chad, I wish I lived in America where men do not beat on their wives there." I said, "Oh, sister, people are people everywhere you go." As you ask these open-ended questions, you are exploring the different ideas. What do they say? You want to get them talking. And then when they say something, dig a little deeper. Look at number 9. How did you come up with that idea? You know? How do you like to challenge yourself? How do you think your career will look like in the future? Number 10. What needs to happen today to make this activity worth your time? What concerns do you have about making changes? These 10 lists are just examples of open-ended questions that you can ask in a counseling session. Open-ended questions are conversational and encourage people to share more information. They can be used in many different contexts, such as business interviews, right? Not just in counseling, but if you are interviewing someone for a job, ask them an open-ended question. Conversations, counseling sessions, but also even Bible studies. If you're studying with someone who is a Roman Catholic, or you believe in someone who is a charismatic Pentecostal person, and you're trying to discuss, speaking in tongues, you can ask that yes or no question. Do you believe in this? Well, that's a yes or no question. But then you have to ask a different question. Why do you think it's okay today to speak in tongues? Why do you feel it's okay to listen to the Pope in Rome? Asking these open-ended questions, you're not arguing, you're not disagreeing, right? You're just getting them to talk. Getting the things out so that you can discuss them rationally, reasonably, and help them. Bible studies, interviews, counseling sessions. Now, as I said, I'm going to go off topic for just a few minutes. Communication is key. Now, in your counseling sessions, as you ask open-ended questions and you get to talking, let's say you're talking with a husband and wife, right? Husband and wife, you're talking to them. It's very beneficial to talk to both the husband and wife at the same time so that they can both hear at the same time what's being said, right? But let's say you're talking to a husband and wife and you're asking an open-ended question. He comes home every night drunk and then you're arguing and yelling, then you have a big dispute. And you might ask the question, number 8, why do you think that approach is best? And you're asking the woman, and she starts talking, well, I think this, and the husband jumps in, that's not right, that's not what I did, I didn't say that. Right? You want conversation. And so, how can you do that? Well, one of the ways, and I'm just going to use this songbook here as an example. You make a card that says speaker, right? Or maybe it's a book or a special item, whatever the case may be. But you make an agreement in your meeting that whoever is holding that card is the one who has permission to speak, right? The husband may be a very domineering person. Maybe he wants to shout you down. Maybe he wants to cut you off. Maybe he wants to disagree with everything that's being said. And the woman is used to it. Again, she's going off a script in her mind. She knows that when he starts yelling, she can stop talking. And that's not good for the counseling session. You need her to talk. So you might use a speaker card or some other thing to show whoever's holding that has the floor to speak. Hey, if you're not holding the speaker card, sorry, sir, you can't talk. That's our agreement. That allows a woman to speak, or some cases, maybe the wife is domineering, Maybe the wife is domineering and doesn't allow the man to speak. I think it can happen both ways. Everyone needs the same amount of time to talk and express themselves. Most of the time, most conflict can be resolved when all the parties understand your feelings. They understand the situation. And when you allow that woman who gets all upset because the man comes home every night drunk, allow her to express her frustration, not yelling and dispute, but just allow her to express why it upsets her so. Oh, it upsets her because she has to put the children to bed by herself. She had a father who always came home drunk. Or she might say she wants her husband to be a good Christian example in the church. All these different reasons why she might be angry with the husband coming home drunk every night. Allow her the chance to express those feelings. Same with the man. The man may be coming home drunk every night because he is broke financially. He's stressed at work. He's afraid of losing his job. And the only way he knows how to deal with that is to go to the alcohol. And no one is going to know those problems unless you ask open-ended questions. Now, later on, we're going to have lunch. And when you have lunch, it comes in this side, right? And it comes out the other side, right? Now let me ask you a question. When your lunch comes out the other side, what do you want to do with that? Do you want to put it back up on the table?
No.
What? When you are counseling with people and you get them talking with open-ended questions and you get them discussing and expressing their feelings, and they discuss that issue, let's just say marital infidelity, right? Or it might be the woman spent all the money. My own father-in-law gave his mother $5,000. That's all the money that he had at that time. Gave his mother $5,000 and didn't tell his wife for several days. And when she found out, she was not happy. Mostly because he didn't carry her along, right? But let's just say, for example, that happens. Say the wife spent all the money, or maybe the man was unfaithful in the marriage. And that has happened in the past, right? That is the rubbish. That is the sewer. Nobody wants to bring it back on the dinner table and eat it again. But so many times in conversations between a husband and wife, it's been 3 years since he was unfaithful. But every time he does something wrong, she brings up the marital unfaithfulness. Every time he does anything wrong, she brings up on the table how he was unfaithful 3 years ago. Or it's the same on the other side. Every time she does something wrong, he brings up that she spent all the money. I can't believe you gave all that money away. And so every conversation, they're bringing up the sewer on the table. Right? Because they don't know how to deal with their issues. They just want to have an argument. One of the things you can do is have what we call a sewer contract. A sewer contract. That when something bad happens and you deal with it, it's resolved, right? You put it down in the toilet, you flush it, you pour water down, it does not ever come back up on the table. And so with this sewer contract, if the man was unfaithful 5 years ago and the woman wants to bring it up again, sorry, you're not allowed to do that. It's been forgiven, it's been resolved, you can't bring it up again. The same is true for the woman spending all the money. You can't bring that up every time you have a conversation. It's been resolved, it's been forgiven, it's been put away. Don't keep slinging up the past just to get back at your spouse. Remember, it is always good to listen without distractions. Whenever you're counseling with someone and you're asking open-ended questions, it is always good to turn your phone on silent, right? And even for the counselee, turn your phone on silent. Because you're trying to ask open-ended questions. How do you think that makes you feel? Or why do you think you acted that way? And then the person wants to respond, but they're always, hang on. Yeah. Well, I think that, hang on. Well, I think my father, hang on. Try to have an area without distractions. Put your phones away. Don't have the television or the radio on. Have a conducive environment without distractions. I want to teach you about active listening. Active listening. And I think I have a section on it later, but we're going to go ahead and talk about it now. when you are in a conversation as a counselor and a counselee, and that counselee or that client is telling you something about, okay, let's just go back to our example about the husband comes home every night and is drunk, and then she has an argument with him every night, okay? You're the counselor. You need to practice what's called active listening. So she has told you all of these things. She's telling you he comes home every night and he does midnight and he wakes the kids up and I put them back to bed and all these other things. She's going on. Active listening, what you do is, now listen, you repeat, you summarize and repeat what the counselee said in your own words. So she's going on about, he comes in at 1 a.m. drunk and then he wakes up all the neighbors and he knocks over the table and all these, she's talking about all these, wakes the kids up and all these problems that she's discussing. Then when she's done, you are actively listening. You say, now what I hear you saying is, he comes home late, he's disturbing the neighbors in the house. So it's not judging, you're not agreeing or disagreeing with her, right? You're just repeating what she says in your own words, right? I cannot. Now, I was taught that in counseling class when I was in preacher school, but I have used that in every avenue of my life, right? I have used that in every avenue of my life, where I am trying to have a conversation with someone and I really want to hear what they're saying. I actively listen. I listen and then I repeat in my own words. Here is what I hear you saying. And then I repeat it in my own words. And then she will either confirm or correct me. She will confirm my summary by saying, yeah, what you said is right. Or she will correct me. She'll say, no, that's not at all what I mean. I mean this. I encourage you to practice active listening. Stay on the subject. When you ask open-ended questions, and you can have the conversation go anywhere, but when you're discussing the drunk husband at night and she's arguing every day, don't start talking about school fees or the car broke down. And that's not the discussion. That may need to be discussed, but you need to stay on topic. Help the counselee stay on topic on what you're discussing. And then don't get angry. And don't be judgmental. One time I was doing a counseling session with a woman who routinely enjoys having sex with males and females. Now, I don't agree with that, right? And she's a member of the church, so that irritates me even more. I'm agitated because she's not doing right. She is sinning. She's practicing sin, but she's coming to me for counseling. So what am I going to do? Am I going to immediately start pointing my finger at her and start saying, you're a sinner, homosexuals shall not inherit the kingdom of God? Does that help? No. I've got to swallow that just a little bit. I'm not saying that she's okay. I'm not agreeing with her position, but in order for her to have a safe space to discuss that issue, and where you can reasonably discuss it with her, she has to have trust in you. And so you've got to manage your own self a bit. When you ask these open-ended questions, for example, how do you still deal with stress? and the husband says, I drink every night. You may not agree with that, but you have to have the conversation. Manage your emotions, manage yourself. That doesn't change the scriptural facts. That doesn't change that he shouldn't be doing that. But you are there to manage yourself and to help them find a better way. I'm going to be talking later on about competency-based counseling, and I encourage you to stay around for that. Because in my opinion, this model for competency-based counseling is one of the best models for you as preachers. So I encourage you to stick around for that. And if you ever, always look for ways that you can serve. But also I want to close with this, and I'm going to say it later on. Anything said in a counseling session is always confidential. You can't even tell your spouse. Right? Because as soon as I tell my wife about that woman who loves to sleep with men and women, what's she going to think? She's going to have trouble with that, right?
Yes.
Protect your spouse by keeping your mouth shut. Keep that confidentiality, right? Protect your spouse. Thank you very much, and may God bless you all in Jesus' name.